is episode 9 of Rory's Table Tennis Topics, and as usual, I have 3 new guests. I've got Elroy Edwards, Ritchie, Venner, and Marc, Burman. So they're all going to give a quick intro to how they got involved in table tennis, etc. So Elroy, if you can go first, please.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. My name is Elroy Edwards, and I'm an ex-professional boxer. But I was doing boxing and table tennis at the same time. Table tennis, however, was my favorite sport. But in terms of making a living, I chose boxing. And I was out of table tennis for 21 years before I came back. And
tell us what age you were when you started.
Say that again?
What age were you when you first started?
13 and a half, 14. I came to this country in 1985.
And tell us how your first experience of table tennis.
Well, the first time I seen it played was in Jamaica, but that was only once. When I came to secondary school in England, I saw it in school, and I fell in love with the game. And I decided that I got to learn to play the game correctly. So I started going around various youth clubs. And then I decided to set up a team, which was Providence House.
Was there no adult setting the team up at that point, or was it just you doing it yourself?
It was me. At the time, I was about 16. So I came in.
Okay.
Yeah, I was about 16, and I decided that I want to set up a team, and we set up Providence House. So we started in Division 6, and I brought it from Division 6 to Division 1. However, I didn't play Division 1. That's when I went back to boxing. I had to make a choice.
Did you have any coaching as a junior?
I would say I had not much, but if any, it was from Keith Falconer.
Oh, I know Keith Falconer. I played league with him in Guildford League not so long ago. Yeah.
A little bit from Mike Pantin.
Okay, from Crusaders. Yeah. I haven't met him, but I know him. Know of him.
Before Crusaders, he was at a club called Rejects.
Okay.
And that's where I met people like Paul Carter and and Darren Blake and Jason Blake at the time. So that's the era I was playing. And then you stopped playing for 21 years or something? 21 years, yes.
And you came back. And more recently, you've been playing in some of the Vets tournaments, and you've been staging your own tournaments, etc. But maybe we'll come to that a bit later when you're talking about your club. So, Ritchie, would you like to tell us how you got started in table tennis? Because I don't know myself how you did.
Yeah, I started when I was about 9 or 10. My dad was a very good player. He played for England in the 1950s in the hard bet era and was coaching quite seriously at the time. So I remember being I think it was probably 9, and he'd take us down the local club where he played in the Crawley League, a club called Longley's that no longer exists. Distinctly remember being a little boy, my dad standing behind me, holding my hand and teaching me how to do a forehand topspin.
So he was a hard bat player, did you say?
When he played for England, he played with a hard bat because it was the hard bat era in the 1950s. Yeah. But when I was playing with him when he was coaching me in the 1970s, he was playing with short pimples on both sides.
Okay, with sponge or without sponge? With sponge.
With sponge, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he was trying to he'd upgraded from a hard bat but he hadn't gone to proper reverse.
No. And so you developed from there. Did you play in the local league or?
Yeah, he kind of held me back, which I found quite frustrating at the time. So I didn't start playing in the league till I was 13. When I really wanted to start, maybe when I was 11 or 12. So I started in Division 3 in Crawley when there was 9 divisions. We won Div 3, went to Div 2, won Div 2. When I was about 15 or 16, I was playing in Division 1.
And there was no Premier back then? Division 1 was the top?
Division 1 was the top, yeah. There was no Premier division.
Go ahead.
And at that time, I started getting into the county team. So from about 16, I was in the county second team, and in my last season, I played junior county first team for Sussex with Adrian Moore and Gary Bonner.
Okay.
That was the Sussex junior team at the time.
And what number were you on the team?
3.
Okay.
Yeah, Adrian Moore was England number 2 behind Cole Preen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Adrian was the superstar in the team.
Where did you get to in the junior rankings then?
Yeah, I didn't play many tournaments in the junior. I remember my last season I played a couple of tournaments and only got to 38, I think, on my last ranking before I became too old.
Okay, yeah. And then you've played the whole way through. You've never stopped playing, have you?
I played the whole way through, apart from I had a couple of years out a few years ago, 2016, with a shoulder injury. But apart from that, it was only injury that stopped me playing.
Yeah, cool. Good. Okay, so we'll move on to Marc. Tell us a bit about how you got started in table tennis.
So I started with my dad, a bit similar to Ritchie. So my dad wasn't a particularly good player, but he played Division 2 or 3 of the local league. But he was not a bad coach. And initially I wasn't interested in table tennis. But a friend of mine at school, one day came into the lesson. He said, I went to table tennis last night and your dad was coaching me. And I went, really? I said, well, I should come along and if you're going. So I went home, said to Dad, apparently Lee came last night to the table tennis. I said, oh yeah, that's right. So anyway, I then went along and we got into a group of about 5 or 6 juniors that my dad was coaching. It was the main hall at South Mitcham Table Tennis Club where I played, and all the adults played in there, and juniors weren't really allowed. Then you had another room, which was one table. My dad would go in there and coach us, basically. There's about 5 or 6 of us. And
what age were you?
I was 11.
11.
And I got hooked on it. I got really interested in it. Initially, it was just a fun thing. Just like we played lots of round the table, table tennis, cricket, lots just fun games, nothing too serious. But I really got into it. I started to get better, and then I got hooked on it. And then I was determined to sort of be the best within that small group. And then I managed to do that. And then I started to play with the adults, and then a few years later I was the best player in that club. And during this period I played for Surrey juniors, but I really sort of played. I mean, it crosses over because actually Elroy, you played in the Wandsworth League.
Yeah,
the Wandsworth League. Yeah, because that's the league I grew up in. That's how I know Providence, and I used to play at your gardens, and I didn't really go to tournaments. I played lots and lots of local league stuff. So I never really achieved a high ranking as a junior, although I did play for...
Did you play for... what ranking were you in Surrey then, your county?
I was in the second team. So the first team at the time was Darren Blake. It was Edward Hatley.
Okay, I don't know him.
And the other guy was... And his brother, Jason Blake. I think it was Jason. So they had a really strong first team. So I was then in this... I could never get into the first team. So I was always in the second team. So basically I carried on doing that, and then I got into coaching.
You same as Ritchie and myself, you never stopped playing, did you?
No, I carried on playing even through university. I carried on playing. I've never really stopped.
And how did you get into coaching, Marc? Because you're a coach now.
Yeah, that was an accident as well, really, because I was 16 when I first started coaching, and I wasn't interested in coaching. I had no thought of coaching. I was just interested in playing. What happened was I was really a massive supporter of Chelsea Football Club. I was obsessed by them. I was looking at all the stats and everything else. And what happened was I started to phone up every day. I found a number you could call and you get the latest news on Chelsea Football Club. And I was phoning that number every day from my dad's house and listening to the latest news and then writing all the latest news down. I didn't know that it was £1 a minute. So, and these calls went on for 5-10 minutes every day. So after about 3 months, I had a massive bill. Dad was furious. And I had to pay it back. So that meant me earning some money somehow. And then by accident, I sort of went down to my local leisure centre look for a job as a sort of a lifeguard or something like that. Told them I was interested in table tennis. They said they'd actually been looking for to run a table tennis session. Would I be interested? And I said yes. Initially, they didn't really pay me anything, but I grew it up. Initially it was like 3 or 4 people turn up, and then it grew to about 30. Then I had 2 sessions. Then I got qualified as a coach, and then I just really got into the coaching, and then that led to me then doing it professionally for 5 years.
Did Ben Larkham come through your sessions originally?
Yeah.
From memory. Yeah.
So he was one of the kids that turned up. Yes, with his dad.
Experttabletennis.com.
Yeah. He turned up with his dad, and it was towards the end of my so I did coaching for about 5 years professionally, including at the club that I'd built up, which was Westcroft. And then I decided I was going to go to university. So the year before I went and sort of pulled out of everything, Ben had turned up. So I had about a year with him. And then when I left and went to university, I told him and all the others to go to Mike Pantin, Rejects, which was just down the road. So that's another connection, Elroy, with what you were saying. So that's it really.
Okay, cool. Right, we're going to move back to Elroy again. So we've moved forward 21 years now, and he's had his break. He wants to come back to table tennis, but you weren't just happy just to join a local club. You decided you wanted to set up a local club in your own area, right? Tell us a bit about how that came about.
What happened is, let me turn this. Let me get this off. What happened is, I had a shop, and the shop I was doing marketing and promotion, music, etc., and I've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years, and I kind of was getting fed up of it, and I was listening to a guy in Jamaica. He was like a dub poet, Muta Baruka. And he kept on saying, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same result. So I decided to research the saying, and it was credited to Albert Einstein. And it says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So I'm thinking, I must be crazy then. I must be mad because I'm doing the same thing over and over and I'm not getting the result I want. So I said, you know what, I've got to change this, and I've got to change it now. Not next year, not a New Year resolution. It's got to be done now. So I said, there's 2 things I'm good at, table tennis and boxing. And I said, it's not going to be boxing because to sell boxing to parents is very difficult. So it has to be table tennis. So I went on the internet and I found Vauxhall Table Tennis Club in Luton. And whatever day it was, I went there the following Monday. And I started practicing, and, they said, oh, you're very good. They want me to play Premiership. I says, nah, I don't want to start. I'll start in Division 1 and work my way up, which is what I did. But while I was there, I realized there was no youngsters. And when I was playing, I was a youngster at the time. You used to youngsters. So I'm used to seeing youngsters in table tennis, but these were mainly pensioners. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm thinking, if I come back to a dying sport, this is not good. And I'm trying to talk to them to get them around, starting a bit earlier so we can try to get some kids in, because I'm good at marketing. So, but they wouldn't listen to me. I'm a big mouth, so this guy think he knows everything. So I says, okay, they're not listening to me. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find somewhere for myself. But I was playing for them at the time, and I came across Lucy Farm Learning Center, and that's how it started. And it was in 2016. 2016, I put a proposal to them, and they accepted it, and they bought me 3 tables, and it was 3 of the crappiest tables them I ever seen. But because of my promotional skills, I had good players coming down there, and I kept on pushing it out on Facebook, all social media network, and there was an opportunity came up for me to do my my level 1, which I took. I did my level 1. I moved on to my level 2. So 2016 to 2017, Luton Table Tennis Club was only a training set. I'll use it just for training players. And then as I was training up the players, they keep asking, do you have a team? And so I was directing them to various clubs, but then I wouldn't see them again. So I decided that I got to set up my own club to play in the league. And in the first season, which was 2017 to 2018, I had 6 teams. 2018 to 2019, I had 11 teams. And this current season, we went back down to 10 because work issues with other players.
So how much do you pay for the venue per hour or per evening or whatever?
Okay, I was very lucky in the sense that at the beginning, the arrangement was I'm going to give them a third of whatever I make. And I stipulate it's got to be I will only give them a third because the work I'm putting in, I don't care about the free space you're giving me. The work I'm going to put in to build this place is going to be second to none. And which is what I did. But then eventually, I ended up being a part of the board, the trustee. I became a trustee of the building, and they lost 2 managers, and there was no one to run the center. And I says, you know what, I'll do it. And I did it for 2 years without pay. And I was doing all the various different jobs, and they made a deal that, I mean, they couldn't pay me. They were paying the manager something like 20-something thousand a year. So they says, you know what, for what little money you're making from table tennis is no point they collect anything from me. So I had freedom to really do what I want and develop the table tennis club. So I moved it from 3 days to 7 days a week.
So tell us about the club. So how many tables can you fit in for coaching, and how many for matches maybe?
For league matches, I've fit in 5 before, but for tournaments, 3.
And for coaching?
Excuse me?
For coaching or training practice sessions or coaching sessions, how many tables would you put up?
Coaching session, I can put in 5.
Same as the league, yeah.
But I've put
okay.
Yeah.
And how many sessions a week do you have? And is it coaching or practice, or do you have both?
10 days a week.
Every day? Every
day. It was every day. We haven't started back yet.
And is it coaching sessions or just practice or both?
Practice and coaching session. Because as you know, Eli Barati, he runs some of his sessions there, and Vidal, because I allow coaches to also use the venue as well.
And how about yourself? You run coaching sessions there yourself?
I do coaching session, but mainly I like working with the younger ones. I like to develop players from nothing to something.
And how many junior players do you have in the club, and how many senior players?
Junior, I have over 20 junior players.
Very good. And seniors?
Seniors probably about 60 something.
60 something?
60, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how about female players? Do you have many female players in the club, or not really?
Very few. It's very difficult to get female players involved in the game. I mean,
I think it's the same everywhere.
My daughter was playing at one stage, and she ended up representing the county even as a senior. You know, at 13 years of age. You know, she was playing for Bedfordshire in the senior section. So, you know, I done well with them. You know, but it's everywhere to get females in the game is difficult. Yeah.
And have you entered any teams in, like, say, Senior British League, Vets British League, Junior British League, National Cadet League, or National Junior League?
I last season I did Cadet and the Cadet League and the Junior League. You know, this season I was planning to do seniors, but obviously the COVID took over. COVID changed everything. And
you've run one-star tournaments quite a few times last season, didn't you?
Yeah, I was inspired by yourself, yeah.
And were you refereeing them, or did you get somebody else to come in to referee them? Or
the one-star tournament.
Yeah, so you did it yourself, did you?
Yeah, I did it myself. But I tell you, the reason why I started the one-star, I started it for myself, so I can have some tournaments that I can play in and get some ranking points. But then I damaged my shoulder, and that was the end of that for me.
You've been playing left-handed, have you?
Yeah, I'm a bit ambidextrous because I bowl with my right and I'm back with my left. So when I damage my shoulder, I start using my left, which I've played in Division 1, in the Premiership with my left, and I've played a few tournaments with my left as well.
Did you win any matches with your left?
Yeah, I have, yeah. It's not many players in the Luton and District League in the Premier would beat my left.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
I generate with my left hand. And
nice.
I get more touches, nice little touches with my left, yeah.
I'll have to challenge you with a left-handed game. I'm pretty useful with my left hand myself from coaching for 20 years, I mean.
Marc, you were just going to talk about the fact that you produced Emma Torkington from scratch, who went on to be under 11s National Champion and obviously maintained a very high level throughout her junior and even under 21s kind of table tennis career, if you want to call it that. So can you kind of go through maybe how that came about, how she got so good?
With Emma, I moved from Surrey to Sussex in 2004, just after I finished university, and then I wanted to get back into coaching again, so I moved to Haverteeth, found my local club, Walden Park, went down there and said to Brian, Tate and Lyle that I would be interested in coaching. They were doing quite a lot with the juniors at that time. And I started coaching a small group of juniors, and I was coaching David Torkington initially, her brother, and she was quite young at the time. She was about 8, and I didn't initially ever have her or invite her into my group because I thought maybe she's a bit young, and I wanted to coach people who were maybe a little bit older, a bit more established as players at the time. I was just starting out as a coach there, so I was establishing myself. And then the father said, would you coach my daughter Emma? And even though you haven't invited her to the group, she's really keen. So I started coaching her at her house. They had a garage at the back of the house with a table in there, and I started coaching her, and she got better and better, and started to go to all the tournaments.
How many hours a week was she doing at various ages, in juniors?
So I think at the beginning it was probably only about 3 or 4 hours a week, right at the beginning, and then it progressed up to around about 10. But it was never really more than that.
Was this all 1-to-1, or was it group as well?
Mainly 1-to-1, but there was also group coaching. She'd also play some league games. It was mainly 1-to-1, I'd say.
She didn't do NCL, NJL, or anything like that, did she? Or did she? She did JBL probably, did she?
Yeah, she did the JBL. That was she did that. She was asked to play for a few different teams. I think she did 1 or 2 different teams she played for. But yeah, from an early age, she was one of the best in her age group. So it made sense then to start doing all the tournaments. And then when you start going to the tournaments, almost every week there's a tournament somewhere, as you know, Rory. You go to a lot of them.
I do.
And that's a big thing to get better and improve. Going to tournaments and playing players of loads of different styles, and then as I was constantly watching her, competing, you spot things that she needs to work on. So then you go back to the training hall and work on those specific things that she was struggling with, and then you do another tournament, and then you spot something else. You go back, you start working on that, and it's like a cycle then.
So,
it's a perpetual cycle.
One thing that is hard for most coaches, including myself, is getting girls playing and keeping them playing. And so do you think, first of all, do you have to approach it differently when you're coaching a girl, and also how do you think we can attract more girls into the sport and keep them playing?
It's not an easy question to answer because some of it's cultural with girls. Girls, it's changed. I would say it's changed in the last sort of few years, but certainly girls are not naturally, certainly to go to elite sport, they're not really, they get into other things. And there was certainly, I know with tennis, for example, in Sutton, there was a big tennis centre there, and we had a meeting there once and for a coaching course, and they were saying that a lot of the girl tennis players would pull out at a certain age, once they reach a certain standard, because it wasn't deemed fashionable to be doing sport when you're 16, 17. And I think that's been a big thing. Boys tend to carry on, but girls in sport, especially when you elite sport, I think there's a sort of a lot of them reach a point where they think, well, I don't know if this is cool for me to keep doing this.
So why do you think Emma was, quite keen to carry on, or was it parental kind of influence, or, what were the factors involved, do you think?
Parents were a big thing. Howard and Bodge were really, really supportive of her. Took her everywhere. Paid for her to go to all the tournaments, and that's essential. I think even whether it's a girl or a boy, you need the parents to be really supportive and willing to back them. Without that, it's almost impossible.
The route that Emma took wouldn't be possible for most people because of financial implications, because you were talking about up to 10 hours of one-to-one coaching, and a lot of coaches charge £25 an hour, and £50 a week. It's
with that though. We're talking that towards the end when she was getting better and better. I mean, it wasn't 10 hours right from the beginning, so
no.
It was a gradual build up over time. And once she gets to 16, 17, she's playing for England. They specified that you need to do, if you want to be part of the England squad, you need to be doing actually 20 to 25 hours a week. But
they don't provide any financial assistance to help with their coaching sessions.
There was. It wasn't directly from them, but they. Emma was sponsored, so equipment was all paid for, and also she received sport grants from Sport England and things like that. So it wasn't just the parents paying out for coaching. It wasn't that. It wasn't that sort of. What I'm trying to say is it's once you get to a certain standard, the sponsorship and the grants come in, and you're able then to do a lot more. And so it's a gradual build up to that. So at the beginning, she was doing like 2 or 3 hours. And as she got more, better and better, she did more and more. But then the support structures start to kick in from Sport England and English Table Tennis Association.
Does she still play table tennis right now?
She dabbles in it. She pulls out the bat every now and again and has a hit. I think just before lockdown, I had a practice with her. It's difficult though with her. I mean, she was one of these that she reached top 10, and she would be able to beat people like Maria Satsinos and players around there at that level. But it's difficult once you sort of get into that sort of the pressure at that point when you're sort of knocking on the door of the top 4 or 5. Is hard. I mean, and the margins the margins between the players, although it seems quite small, is actually, it takes a lot of work, and to go from number 10 to number 9, you have to accumulate X amount of points, and sometimes the gap between 9 and 8 can be quite big in terms of points. So that means you've got to accumulate a big number of wins, and time runs out over a course of a season. So. And the other thing I think was difficult for Emma is that there's always a small pool of girls.
So she hasn't really. She didn't grow up, playing with a lot of other girls, did she? She was mainly playing against you and I guess some of the boys down the club and maybe other adults.
Yeah, that was difficult. It would have been much better had she had some peers of a similar sort of age and standard.
Other than the kind of peer relationship and camaraderie and so on, do you think it's beneficial to play against other girls for girls, or do you think they can learn just as much or even more from playing against boys and men, adults, whatever else?
I think you need a bit of both, because the girls do play slightly differently. I mean, they don't have as much power generally. They play flatter, generally a flatter type of game.
But Emma actually plays quite spinny, doesn't she?
Yeah, she was kind of a mix between the two. So
did you approach the coaching differently with her as she was a girl, or did you just treat her the same as if she was a boy? I mean, how do you treat girls different? Do you teach them different styles, or are you trying to teach the same style, or how does it work for you?
It's all down to the individual. So you kind of, as you're coaching the basics, they start playing and they start to sort of have a natural affinity with a certain style. You can see them sort of going in a certain direction, and you see that they're comfortable going in that direction. So then you encourage them in that way. And Emma was one of those that loved to topspin. She didn't want a flat hit. So there's no point trying to make her like an atypical girl if she's not sort of going for that style. She's much happier looping.
So it's more based on what she brought to the table rather than what you kind of directed her to do.
It's a combination, because I could have said, "Oh no, that's not the way girls play. You can't play like that. Girls don't loop. They flat hit." So I could have forced her away from it. So it's a combination. I recognise that she was much more aggressive and loopy than the atypical girl player. So I encouraged her to carry on down that road.
Okay. Ritchie, just to come back to you quickly, did you get any financial help when you were either a junior or a senior? Okay, your dad coached you, so presumably you didn't have to pay for coaching. Or did you have sponsorship from equipment companies or anything like that?
No, actually, when I was a junior or a senior, I didn't have any sponsorship. But bizarrely, I do now.
Oh, you do? Who are you sponsored by?
I'm sponsored by Brybar.
Okay.
So I get me kits and me rubber given to me, which is I very much appreciate that. That helps enormously.
Yeah,
but not as a senior or a junior did I get anything.
No, same as me. I'm now sponsored by Stag, which I wasn't either. I didn't really play much as a junior. So just to cut before we wrap up, Elroy and Ritchie, have you got any questions for Marc or for each other before we bring it to a close? Or comments?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Marc, how are you playing yourself these days? How are you getting on, and what's your ambitions for the next season?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really. I kind of just keep my eye in. It's very difficult to sort of do both. I'm very much involved in the coaching still. I find it very difficult to then give it the appropriate amount of time to dedicate to playing. So I end up just playing league games. And I do the odd bit of practice here and there. It's really not enough for me to play how I know I can, at an optimum level. But I'm comfortable with not being suboptimal. I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
And at some point, I think next year I've got a lot on my plate, so I think it will be the same next season. But I do at some point want to re-engage with playing again. And
over 50.
I'd like to, yeah, maybe over 50s, yeah. But I'd like to, because it's a bit frustrating sometimes knowing you can play a better standard than you are playing. But yeah, so at some point I'd like to address that. But yeah, maybe in a few years' time.
To throw that question back at Ritchie, have you got any goals? Like, do you want to win the over 60s World Championship or anything like that? Any goals you got?
I'm not planning to win any World Championships, because when you've gone to these tournaments, the standard is outrageous when you get to the finals. Even getting to the quarterfinal was quite an outrageous performance.
So
I think I'm probably more of a last 32 as a par level.
have they brought in over 55s now and over 65s and all that in the tournament?
Yeah. I think at all future European and Worlds, it's a 5-year gap now rather than a 10-year.
All right, so you can be in the over 55s next time then.
Yeah, I'm playing next year in Bordeaux at the World Vets in the over 55s.
Okay.
Ritchie, I don't know the full story, but I've heard snippets that your father coached Chester Barnes. Is that right? I don't know the full story.
Yeah, he first met Chester at a Butlins holiday camp when table tennis was quite a big thing in Butlins, and Chester was the boy of the week and won the holiday tournament. And my dad could see the talent when he was about 13 or 14, and coached him, a lot. And then he became English champion, didn't he? At 15 or 16, I think, English senior champion.
Good.
Right, wow.
And Elroy, just to give you a bit of a question, have you got any good juniors or cadets coming through, or have you got any ambitions of what you would aspire to produce in your club?
Well, everybody'd like to produce champions. At the moment, good players, or to find players who will stay in the game a bit longer.
Participation and
because the youngsters, then they got so many distractions. So if you can get youngsters to stay in the game,
that's the tough thing. Keeping them, if you keep them beyond 15, 16, 17, 18 into adults, they'd probably continue playing. But for me, a lot of them give up at 15 when they leave cadets, or 16, or if they manage to keep it as far as 17 or 18, they'll usually stop at that point. But if you
I'm still new in table tennis in terms of running a club, so there's a lot for me to learn, which I am learning.
True, but you've done quite a remarkable amount in a small space of time in terms of setting up your club and getting things going in your area. So well done for that. It's very good.
Elroy, did you have anything to do with York Gardens? Because I know that, because I played at Providence, and I know that York Gardens is around the corner.
Yeah, I played for York Gardens after Providence did stop after I left. I was, as I said, I started it, so I was a driving force. And when I left for boxing, that was it. And then I came back for a brief spell, and I was playing for York Gardens. So I played for them for a while.
They produced it. I mean, York Gardens went through a phase of producing some phenomenal players. And Darius Knight came from there.
I remember playing him when I took some time off and came back, and it was like the new thing in table tennis, in the pride of Battersea. And I played him, and I just about beat him at 12 years of age. So I knew it was going to be something in table tennis.
Well, I remember playing him, and he was I think he just turned 13, like a week before. And I played him in the Wandsworth League, and I was playing for better than I am now. I was playing for Surrey, and he beat me. I was like, that was a bit of pill to swallow.
You played him. You played him again a couple of years ago in a county match, didn't you, Marc? And
that's right. A couple of years ago. Oh yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and I recorded some of the points, and I remember recording a point where you completely dumbfounded him in a point, and it was quite funny. I still got it.
York Gardens also had 2 other good youngsters, the Quartley brothers.
The Quartley brothers, Howard Quartley. Yeah.
But they were abused by their coach, and I was pretty close to the dad, and they, because of what happened to them, they kind of lost their.
I remember Howard Quarty and Adam Quarty. They were 2 brothers. And Howard won the junior national championship.
Yes.
He beat Andrew Bagley in the final.
Yes.
And I mean, so he was a real prospect as well. But there were others. There was others you probably don't know. won't know their names because they kind of gave up too soon. But there was a lad called Paul Moore, who the guy that coached Darius, who was a guy called Gideon Asherson.
Yeah, Gideon, yeah.
Yeah, he coached Darius, but he also coached Paul Moore.
Yeah.
And Paul Moore, he would say, was like, you know, I think Darius would admit that Paul was even, like, potentially even better. But Paul went off the rails a little bit. But there was so many coming from York Gardens. It was Darius was like the famous one, but there was others.
Yeah, there was a lot others. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up there. It's been an interesting show again, and I'm just going to thank all of the guests: Ritchie, Venner, Marc, Burman, Elroy Edwards. Appreciate your time tonight, and we'll have another show back next week. So thanks and goodbye. See you later.
Cheers, Rory.
See you then. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Take care.
So, Ritchie, would you like to talk about maybe how you went from being, say, kind of an average junior? You said you got to top 30. Well, not average, better than average, but not a top junior, to, you know, getting to, where did you get to in the rankings? 12 in the men's or something like that?
11.
11. So what did you do to get there? I mean, how much training, coaching did you get, etc.?
I think all through the period of junior and becoming a senior, my dad coached me throughout that period.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really helped me step up my standard, I'd got into the top 100 and I was around 90 in England, living in Crawley. And a couple of really good players moved to Crawley. Mike Hammond, who was a captain of Surrey at the time, and a Scottish international called Ian McLean, both moved to Crawley. And the three of us practiced quite hard, maybe 2-3 times a week. And I think the standard of all three of us kind of improved. And it kind of shot me from being 90 in England to being in the top 20. So, and then from then, I spent the next 20 years in the top 20.
I was going to say, you maintained that for a hell of a long time. So did you maintain practice, regular practice all the way up to now, or how have you managed that?
Yeah, I've always been one that's made sure that I practice. I'm not sure I particularly enjoy practicing, but I've always been aware that I need to do it to maintain a standard. So even now, I'm playing 3 times a week, even in lockdown.
Oh, really? And who do you play? Oh, you're playing against. Is it again? You're playing against your wife? Is it in lockdown? Is it or who?
No, I'm playing against my wife's brother-in-law, a guy called Paul Hutchins, who's a former top 30 in England player.
Oh,
so he's got a table. He's got a table set up at his house. So at the moment, as we can't play in clubs at the moment, I'm playing with him. And he's a mad keen practicer.
Dave Steele mentioned him. He's going to play for Foresters in the Vets British League. Well, the second weekend, because the first weekend's been cancelled, of course. Yeah, he's looking forward to that. Yeah, he's a new Forester, a man in green. A Hutsman.
A Hutsman, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So, what other than the practice, can you explain how you've managed to keep that level high all these years? Is there any secrets, or any, not secrets, but methods or whatever?
Well, I kind of always say that I started playing a veteran style when I was a junior. And when I say a veteran style, that means not madly rushing around to play forehand loops from all over the court. Yeah. So staying close to the table and make sure you have a good backhand. That it means you can carry on playing as a veteran for a long time.
It's a very good point, because obviously the juniors tend to be mostly forehand, and if you can't maintain that endlessly forever. So yeah, it's a good tip would be to get a good backhand and stay close to the table, because obviously if you're going back, you've got more footwork to do.
Yeah,
it's a bit like Samsonov, I suppose. He plays a steady game. He's got backhand and forehand. He doesn't run around to play massive forehands from the backhand side very often, and he's same age as me, 43, and he's still something like top 10 in the world, or maybe he's not quite that, but he's around that level. So yeah, it's interesting. And
Walden's another one, isn't he? Walden maintained.
Yeah, and
for a long time.
Kirsten and Waldner stayed top in the world up in their 40s. They were still getting to Olympic semi-finals and stuff like that. And for those of us that don't know much about the World and European Veterans Tournaments, myself included, because I've never been, can you tell us a bit about the kind of experience and why so many people enter and why you attend them?
I think they're a great social event stroke holiday. So you can play to whatever standard that you want or take it seriously. A lot of people like to go there for the food and the drink, and it's normally a beautiful city. I probably take it quite seriously, so I try to get as far as I can. They're normally about an 8 or 9 day event, probably an 8 day probably. I mean, the last few years, I mean, it should have been Bordeaux, should have just finished, but that's been put back for next year because of COVID. But in the last few years, there's been Worlds and Europeans, been to Las Vegas, been to Alicante. So they're normally pretty good places. Been to Burman a couple of times.
What's the furthest you've got in European and World events?
Just trying to think where it was. I think in Slovakia there was one. I think it was the Europeans. I got to the quarter final, which is out of about 1,000 players in my age group.
Which age group was that at the time?
That would have been the over 40s at the time.
Right. Okay.
That was about 10 years ago.
Did you say that was World or Europeans?
That was a European Veterans Championships.
And what's the furthest you've got in a Worlds one?
Probably last 32.
Right. And how about doubles? Have you gone further or as far in doubles or?
No. I think I'm a better singles player, should we say?
Okay. I always thought you were quite good at doubles. Who was it you used to play with? Maya Majithia used to play with quite a lot, wasn't it?
Well, you've got a good memory. Yeah, I used to play with Maya years ago. Yeah. I mean, I've played a few of these tournaments with Lorestas.
Okay.
But the standard's very high. So.
And obviously, he's the strongest veteran. Well, if you don't count Michael O'Driscoll, he's the strongest player in England, isn't he?
Yeah, he's currently England number 1. So I've played a lot of doubles with him over the years.
Am I right in saying that you took down both Michael O'Driscoll and Lorestas Trampauskas within the last year?
Yeah, I beat them. I'm probably the only veteran, I think. I beat them both in about a 6-week period.
Yes, that must have been good. I mean, because those two are basically quite.
They're the two elite veterans in the country, definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot. So to beat both of them in 6 weeks is a big achievement. I was going to say, and you're also over 50, and you're still in the number 5. Is it number 5 in the over 40s? But having said that, Lorestas is over 50 now as well. He's 51, isn't he?
Yes.
Going 51, and he's.
But as far as I'm concerned, he's still a youngster.
Yeah. And do you still play in the local league? Is it Liverpool now?
Yeah, I play in the Liverpool League, my local club, McGull, where I live. It's only a small one-table venue. We've got 5 teams, and we have won it, but we normally come in the top 3.
Yeah, and where do you get in the averages? Are you one of the best players?
Yeah, I'm up there. I mean, there's some very good players. There's probably 4 or 5 of us that are around the top. Nobody ever gets 100% in Liverpool because the standard's quite high, but I'm normally in the 90s.
Is that still home and away, finishing at 11 p.m. or
yeah, we don't normally finish at 11. We tend to get finished around 10:15, I would say.
Okay, that's not too bad. And you still play for Sussex in the Veterans County Championships?
Yeah, I've stayed loyal to Sussex, so I've played for them as a junior, senior, and veteran now. So in 5 years' time, I might be able to make the over 60s team.
I think you might just about make it. Yeah. So you're 55 now, then, are you?
55 now, yeah.
Yeah, and you play now for a Sussex club in the Vets British League as well, Foresters in Division 1.
Yeah, I play with Foresters. Yeah, with Paul Carter, who Elroy mentioned earlier. I play with Paul for the county team and for me Vets British League team. So I see a lot of Paul Carter.
Yeah. Can you tell us, other than those 2 top veteran players that you've beaten, when you were, say, a senior player, who were your best wins and maybe where were they ranked at the time? Yeah,
I had a couple of, even I got to 11, I didn't beat that many players in the top 10. I beat Sean Gibson. I don't know if you remember Sean Gibson.
The name, yeah.
He was in the top 10 at the time. I beat John Holland, who was in the top 10 at the time.
Yeah. So cool.
But it was difficult to get much higher. I mean, when I was playing my best, I mean, the top 4 in England were Chen Zhenhua, Desmond Douglas, Cole Preen, and Alan Cook.
I remember you almost took down Paul Drinkle, didn't you?
Yeah, that would have been the win of my life. I was when he was England number 1 at the time. I was 2-1 up and 8-6 up in the 4th when his brother called a time. His brother called a timeout.
Oh my God!
And he completely changed his tactics and come through and won a tight 4th game.
That would have been impressive. Very good.
But I played Liam Pitchford once and beat him. So.
What age was he?
He might have only been 14 at the time, but I don't care.
Still good. Still pretty good. I'm sure he was still good at that time. And question: I don't think you've ever got involved in organising or coaching, but I could be wrong. Is that right?
I have done coaching, not sort of big classes. I was coaching with Ken Muir at his Centre of Excellence in Kent.
Right. Okay.
So I'd go there. Myself and John Boyerson would take it in turns. So I was going there once a fortnight and playing with the top juniors in Surrey, Sussex, and Kent.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. But not organising stuff, clubs or teams or leagues or anything like that.
Not so much. I had people privately come to me and say, could I coach them? And I always said yes. If anyone needed some coaching, I'd do a bit of private coaching on a one-to-one basis.
Did you ever get a qualification or coaching?
No.
No. But
I never bothered to do the coaching.
No, we had Darius Knight on the show a few weeks ago, and he said he's not. I mean, he coaches all the time. He's not even got a coaching qualification, but each to their own. Different, especially if you're not doing it regularly, I guess. So moving on to Marc. Marc, you were going to talk a bit about the structure of the club, how you fit juniors and seniors into your club sessions, and how you kind of encourage a wide variety of different players to play.
Yeah, no, I was going to talk about the subject of how some clubs are set up, and Elroy touched on it earlier that sometimes you'll go to a club and it's just really for adults, or you're not really welcome as a junior, there's a lot of clubs that are set up like that, and I don't blame them, because a lot of the adults want to go out for a social evening and don't want kids running around. And equally, on the other side of the coin, you can get clubs that are purely set up for juniors, and there's a lot of coaching available for juniors, but there's not a lot of coaching available for adults or veterans even.
Correct.
I've found over the years that there's a bit of a disparity, between the age groups and what is and isn't available. And I've found that what we tried to do at Walden Park, is where I coach predominantly, is to set up an environment where everybody can, everybody can access coaching. Everybody can, play. They're all welcome, no matter who you are, what age group you are, and that's worked out really well. And I think that's one of the reasons. I mean, in recent years, the Hayward Heath League has grown in terms of numbers and standard, and a big part of that is it's all based under one roof at Walden Park.
So it's a bit like the Crawley and Horsham League Premier, which we discussed on the last show, where it's all the matches, in fact all the divisions, are played in the same venue, big multi-table venue, on the same fixed evening. So that is it's quite inspiring for the younger players and the lesser players to see the more experienced players, playing at a higher level, etc.
It is, and it's also a much better social environment for the adults as well, because you're not sitting in a quiet hall with one table and you can't say anything. You can go to the other end of the hall, chat to someone from another team. It's much more sociable, and it's the environment is more conducive for people who are going there for that reason. And And that's, as I say, about 8 years ago, the league, as you will know, Rory, the league was in trouble, whether it was even going to carry on at all. I mean, it was down to minimal teams in 2 divisions, and there was talk of going down to just 1 division. And it was very close to doing so. Had it done so, I think the league would have collapsed, because, if you've got a league of just 1 division, then you've got mismatches happening all over the place. You've got players who are not far off being beginner playing county level players, and therefore no one's enjoying it. The league would have imploded in on itself. And then the league, the club sort of changed its approach and became much more focused on trying to cater for everybody, as I say, from a social perspective, from a playing perspective, and from a coaching perspective. And, and that's worked really well. As I say, the numbers have almost doubled in the league because of that. And we've gone from nearly dying to having 3 well filled out divisions. And the standard's gone up as well. As I say, the Premier, you played the Premier last year.
Yeah. And
the Premier is actually quite strong now compared to some other leagues in the area.
It's definitely got a lot stronger in the last, say, 5 or 6 years, 100%. Just going back to your comment about the lack of sessions for like adult players. So my kind of solution to that is I don't restrict anybody from attending any of my sessions. I don't have junior coaching sessions or senior coaching sessions. I just have open coaching sessions which anybody can attend. Okay, they do happen to be mostly juniors, but any adults that come along, as long as they're happy to put up with the kids being, the session being majority kids, then that's fine. I mean, I do have like a handful of adults who come along from most of them are pay as you go. Some of them come regularly, some of them don't. But I think that should be encouraged in clubs, because you're right, because beginner adults, they tend to have to go for one-to-one sessions. Some of them will do that anyway because they prefer it. But I do think that they should have a choice to be able to just rock up to a coaching session, a group coaching session, without having to pay £25 an hour for one-to-one. Or they can do that as well if they decide to. Yeah. But they should be other.
That's right. I think it's making, the league committee made a concerted effort to make everybody aware that it's available to you, because a lot of league players were just turning up, playing their league games, and then they didn't know that there was any coaching available to them. They always just assumed it was for the juniors, and they didn't even think to ask,
So, Marc, you've got your Sunday session, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but you've kind of got an advanced junior session, a beginner junior session, and like an adult kind of free-for-all practice session. Is that how it works, or am I wrong?
That's right, yeah. And so, I mean, I've got, Dennis Hayden helps me, and we've got John Burman, who's Kago's father, helps out as well, and Kago helps himself. So we, with all the juniors that turn up, and it's usually around about 20 to 30, you need to I found the best way is segmenting them into standards. So you have a beginner session where they're just working on basic skills, then you have an intermediate group and an advanced group, because they all kind of need to work on different things.
Right, so you've got 3 different ability level groups.
3 different ability levels, but there is some crossover, within the session.
And if an adult comes along for a group coaching, are they allowed to join in, or do they have to stay in the practice session part of it? Or
no, the way it works with the adult group coaching is we haven't been too open about, you haven't done it recently, but it's like 2 seasons ago, we had an adult group session where it was specific, a specific time, 8 till 9, is purely adults. Anyone that wants coaching can come along. And I did that, and I was amazed at the amount of people that came and said, I'd like to be part of that. I didn't even know that you could do that. I was really amazed. A lot of the people that ended up then coming to that initial open session then said, I'd like to do one-to-one with you. I'd feel that would be better. The issue with the adults, the disparity of standard is much wider than it is with the juniors. So it's almost better for them to do one-to-one, because you had some players that were playing Premier Division, and then some players who were like the low second division. So to try to run an adult session and cater for all that wide disparity of standards is difficult.
So you have more junior players, so you have the ability to split them into groups, but because you've only got a smaller number of senior players, it wouldn't make sense to have a group session with different abilities in it.
No, exactly. So, but although it's smaller, it's I was amazed that there was interest. I was like. And
would you not let the occasional adult join in with a junior session or not? Is that not?
Not really. No, there's they've got to be vetted and things like that to be part of,
well, they don't. Not according to Table Tennis England. If they're a participant, they don't need any DBS checks.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. If they're just feeding, it's fine. But I mean, when they tend to come along, they want to just play themselves.
No, but they don't have to if they're a player either. Senior players can join in with a coaching session with kids. There's no restrictions on that.
Yeah, no, I know. I think what I'm trying to say is that the adults tend to want to. I think from a pride perspective, they don't want to be in a group with kids. They prefer to be,
You're right. Some of them definitely don't, but some don't mind. Like Lynn Trussell, for example, she comes along regularly to my sessions and she mixes in with the kids and doesn't mind. It depends on the person.
There are some, but as I say, that's it's open, but generally, as I say, some of the things that we're working on with the juniors are maybe more physical, footwork exercises that maybe some of the adults who are older couldn't do. And you've got to cater to them slightly differently.
Never underestimate an old person that plays table tennis. I've seen that on a shirt.
Yeah.
Okay, now, unfortunately, you've had a couple of situations in your league. You've had Lyle Seister, who was a stalwart of the league, who's passed away, and Brian Tate, I believe, is seriously ill. I don't know if he's recovering or what.
No, he's recovering, thankfully.
But he was doing a hell of a lot of the organising. So between the two of them, how is the league and the kind of league and club going to cope? Are you going to end up having to do more admin stuff, or have they got other people to replace them? Or
well, firstly, with Brian, he's getting much better to the point he actually attended our last Zoom committee meeting, which was really good. So he's on the mend.
But he might not be able to take on the amount of roles that he was doing before.
No, Lyle was a pillar of the league and the club, and that was a real loss. But luckily, we've actually had quite a few new committee members. And I think we've had, in the last couple of years, about 4
Brett Holt
new
is
ones.
one, isn't he?
Brett Holt is one. I joined. Dennis is on there now. Steve Ive is on there. I mean, basically, we've had about. I think we've just had Richard Cousins join the committee as well. So it's actually in a good place, the committee, and everybody can kind of take up the slack of. The blow that was the loss of Lyle, and obviously Brian being, he's sort of out of it at the moment.
One thing I think might be slightly lacking in your kind of club/league setup is National Cadet League, National Junior League teams, maybe Junior British League, whatever. You've got Senior British League teams, and you previously have had NCL teams. But I mean, do you not have the players that can? You must have players at that standard, because NCL goes down to raw beginner almost.
Yeah.
And we have it. It's held in Horsham, which isn't obviously that far away. Is that something you would consider entering this coming season, or?
Yeah, I've always. There's been a bit of sort of change, with the committee, and there's been a few different sort of changes within the club. So. There's been a few. I mean, the teams that we had when we did enter the NCL, the wave of good juniors, it comes in waves basically. So those juniors like Luke Gallagher, Bertrand, Charlie, they're not playing at the moment. So then there's a bit of a gulf between the next wave coming through. That's also coincided with some changes to the league. People having to take over certain jobs because of the loss of certain people, and so it's just one of those things. It's more of an administrative thing rather than, you don't want to do it. So we're going to, now the committee's fully established. That's something we're going to readdress, in the coming season and beyond.
Yeah, because we had it in Horsham. NCL was in Horsham this year, and then JL is also going to be in Horsham this coming year. Both are going to be in Horsham, both on Sundays. And really, it goes down to raw beginner standard in Division 3 up to county